since so many of you enjoyed my last video ranking some of the most popular luxury fine jewelry brands, I've been inspired to do some follow-up videos diving deeper into the best and worst pieces each and every single maison has to offer. And we are starting with a true icon, Cartier. I'm going to be sharing with you my candid thoughts about every single noteworthy collection Cartier has in their lineup, including the good, the bad, the ugly, the overpriced, the overdone, and the beautiful. So if you'd like to discover the fascinating world of Cartier with me, including some ranges that you might have not heard of, whether you're a novice or a seasoned Cartier collector, I'm sure I'll have something new to share with you today. So if that sounds interesting to you, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on watching. In today's video, we are going to be discussing Cartier's current lineup. We are not here to talk about their history and rich heritage, but I feel like I would do you a disservice by not at least mentioning how the brand began, because Cartier was founded in 1847 by Louis-François Cartier in Paris and was started as a small family workshop, quickly grew into a global luxury powerhouse, and they gained a reputation for not only exquisite craftsmanship, but also for having a cutting-edge approach to design, which allowed them to become a favorite among the rich and famous and also royalty. To this day, Cartier is recognized as a true pioneer when it comes to jewelry making and also crafting timepieces, because believe it or not, Cartier was the first in so many different things. I think I mentioned this in my last video ranking different jewelry brands, but Cartier was the first to do so many different things. They were the first brand to ever design a watch that was meant to be worn on the wrist. It's a watch that they designed in, I believe, 1904, and it was designed for Cartier's personal friend who was a pilot. And even though that specific watch is no longer in production, it is quite comparable to the Santos, which of course you can still find in the lineup, which I believe was the last name of the pilot this very first watch was designed for. They were the first brand to ever launch a piece of jewelry which you did not have to buy as part of a set. It was a single piece that was created for everyday wear, which is of course the love bracelet, designed in 1969 in New York City. You will see that Cartier actually has quite a few collections that are inspired by their French heritage, but some of their most popular pieces that you'll know them for today were actually designed in New York City. And it's no surprise that they have this really unique relationship with New York, considering that they opened their second global boutique outside of Paris in New York City in 1909. And I'm trying to think what else they are best known for. Of course, the tank watch, which was inspired by war tanks, which I believe they launched in 1919, if I'm not mistaken. But we are not here to talk about the brand's heritage specifically, but to review every single noteworthy collection they have to offer, which they have plenty of. Now, if you saw my last ranking video, you'll remember that I put Cartier as a holy grail brand, and that's mainly because they not only have an extremely rich history and heritage, but also an abundance of collections for you to choose from. It doesn't really matter what your personal aesthetic is. I feel like they have something for most people out there. They have such a wide, abundant range of different collections and designs, which is why today's video is going to be quite long. So make sure to grab yourself a drink or a snack, because we're going to be here for a while. But I'll try to make sure that this video is quite quick and snappy, otherwise we could sit here for hours talking about everything that Cartier has to offer, because as you know, I am not known for being concise. But I'm going to start screen record just so you can see everything that I see. And of course, we are using the same tier maker app that I always use. And just like last time, on top we have Holy Grail. These are some of my favorite collections that you can pick up at Cartier. Then we have acquired taste pieces that may or may not work for some people, but I don't find them to be universally flattering. Then we have Miss the Mark. These are pieces that if you get gifted without a gift receipt, I think you could take advantage of, but they are not things that I would go out of my way to get my hands on or would save up for month on end. And then last but not least, of course, we have pieces that I personally would not swipe my credit card for, and I would not recommend that you do so either, just because I feel like you're not getting that much bang for your buck in most cases. And without further ado, let's dive straight in, starting with a ring here, which is from the 1895 collection. Now, when it comes to this video, I'm not only talking about these specific pieces, but also the collections that they belong to. This collection is called the 1895 collection because that was the year Cartier first introduced their very own range of solitaire engagement rings. It is a fully comprehensive line at this point that's all about engagement rings and wedding bands. It's kind of Cartier's essentials. These are very, very simple, understated designs that you can buy as sort of a staple to have in your collection. There's really nothing cutting edge or innovative about them. It's just about simple diamond solitaire bands. If you watched my in-depth review on Tiffany, you'll know that I personally am not a big advocate of investing your hard-earned money into designer engagement rings, ones that don't feature any unique design details, because when it comes to diamonds, it doesn't matter whether you buy them from a designer house or an independent jeweler. As long as they are the same caliber, there shouldn't be that much of a difference. And when it comes to these particular pieces, you're not really getting anything extremely special about these. They do several different rings in this collection. I happen to pick one that's with an emerald cut diamond, but they also do them with brilliant cut diamonds. And I think there might be a couple of princess cut diamonds in this collection too. Personally, if you really want to have a red box in your collection and as part of your wedding day, maybe pick up a wedding band, but I would personally not spend my money on a Cartier or Tiffany engagement ring unless the design was so unique, because you can get a much larger stone for much less money or for the same amount of money, but you're essentially just getting a lot more for what you're paying. And I don't think that this is where you should be spending your money, or not where I would spend mine. So for me, this collection is personally don't swipe the credit card for. Staying on the topic of wedding bands, here we have the Broderie de Cartier collection, which, by the way, most collections are the name of the collection and then the Cartier. I'm not going to continue repeating myself, but if we want it to be extremely correct, the Cartier would go after the name of each and every single collection. But here we have the Broderie collection, which is inspired by lace-like embroidery, and it is a range of extremely delicate feminine wedding bands, which are exclusively available in rose gold and white gold with diamonds. Each piece is essentially an eternity band. What makes them special is that they feature this bezel setting, which means that each diamond is really closely set in solid precious metals, so either in rose gold or white gold, which I am personally not a big fan of. I do not like a bezel setting on a smaller stone because they will inherently make the stone look a lot smaller and a lot less sparkly and shiny, especially if you pick up one of these rings in a single row. This collection comes in 3 different widths, shall we say. You can buy it either with a single row of diamonds, with 2 rows, or with 3. When it comes to the double row diamonds, 1 row will feature slightly larger diamonds, and then when it comes to the 3 row rings, my personal favorite from this collection is the one where you have 2 smaller rows of diamonds, of brilliant cut diamonds, so round diamonds, but in the middle you have a row of marquee shaped diamonds, which is quite special, but I think it's quite overpriced for $45,000. The one that we have here is the 3 row diamond rings, which I would personally say that they are, I'm going back and forth between miss the mark and don't swipe the card. You know what, I'm gonna say don't swipe the card because I just think that they're way too overpriced for what you're getting. And again, I do not like a bezel set for smaller diamonds because I think that they reduce the sparkle and the impact these diamonds could make that you are paying so much money for. Moving on to a collection that dances between fine jewelry and high jewelry. If you have no idea what the difference is, I will make sure to have a video linked up here for you that goes into the nitty-gritty and discusses the details and the differences between what's considered high jewelry and what's considered fine jewelry. Today we are exclusively talking about fine jewelry. Some are more expensive than others, but long story short, fine jewelry is something that you can walk into a boutique and get your hands on, whereas high jewelry is more often than not going to be custom made. It's basically quite similar to couture, haute couture, and ready to wear. Now, this collection, which is the Cartier collection, does have pieces that are custom only and that are considered high jewelry, which by the way, that's not the only distinction, whether it's custom made or ready to be purchased. That's not the only distinction between the two. It's just one of them and it's one of the main ones. But this Clou de Cartier, they do have pieces that you can buy off the shelf, and then they also have some more opulent, more excessive creations, but they are not for the faint of heart. I think this particular collection starts at around $30,000 and it's inspired by the all-consuming atmosphere that's left behind a rainstorm. It really heavily relies on pear-shaped diamonds, which are meant to symbolize and recreate rain droplets. It's quite similar to, in terms of inspiration, to there is a collection from Van Cleef, which is called, it's not called the Sahara, it is the, I can't believe I am blanking. It's called a Mirage. I believe that might be it, the Mirage collection from Van Cleef. I will make sure to have my Van Cleef shopping vlog linked up here for you, where we look at that collection up close and personal. Basically, it has a very similar look and feel to it, except this collection from Cartier actually uses pear-shaped diamonds, which is quite unique. It is a really beautiful old school collection if you are a fan of red carpet looks, or if you go to a lot of events where the dress code is black tie. This is definitely a collection that you would be able to take advantage of, but most of these pieces, I think very few people would be able to wear on a regular basis. But this ring is quite special, so for me it's certainly special, so I would say that it is an acquired taste. But if it was up to me, if it was very personal to my own aesthetic, for me, it would be a miss the mark, but we are only at the beginning of this video, so I'm going to be a little bit more generous. Moving on to a collection that will require no introduction. It is one of Cartier's pension fund collections, which is the Juste range. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you'll know my thoughts on the Juste range inside and out. So instead of just repeating myself, I wanted to share with you some new pieces from the Juste range. The newest one being this double earring, which features the Juste nail on a little hook that it's hanging off of. It's a set of earrings that is available in all three shades of gold, either with or without diamonds. I chose the one with diamonds, which I think is quite unique. The Juste range was one of the first collections that took an extremely ordinary industrial looking item, a nail, and turned it into a true symbol of luxury, and it has been incredibly successful. It's not my personal favorite from Cartier or from any jewelry house out there, but I do think that there are some pieces in this collection that are quite special. So this is a new piece. Not my personal favorite, but it is something new for you to look into. If I had to pick a piece from this range, I would either go for the Juste pendant, which they do in a ton of different finishes. You can pick it up either with or without diamonds. I quite like it in rose gold with some diamonds on the head of the nail. They also do a little ear, I think they call it a single earring, but it's basically a tiny little nail that you can either use as a piercing or as a full-on earring. I think there is something really cool, contemporary, and bold about that. And then I also do like the flexible Juste bracelet with some diamonds on the head of the nail, but I would probably strictly style it as a layering piece over a heavy chunky piece of knit, so it would almost blend into the piece of knitwear. I wouldn't really stack it with other pieces of jewelry. I think it's been done and way overdone, to be honest, at this point. But if you're interested, I do think that when it comes to some of the more commercial ranges from Cartier, this is still quite special, and I think there is a way of styling it and making it look a little bit more individual and personal to you. With that said, let's move on to a completely different collection, which again is much closer to being high jewelry than fine jewelry, which is, I think this collection is called the Geometry and Contrast collection. It's either Geometry and Contrast or Geometry and Shadow collection. It is a range that's inspired by neoclassic pieces that Cartier has been doing since the 20th century. And this collection is incredibly rich and abundant, and you also have to have an abundance of funds to be able to afford this collection, because it starts in the hundreds of thousands. Yes, some pieces are slightly less expensive, but when it comes to this particular collection, I think it is the brooches that will give you the biggest impact. This one is a brooch that features, I believe, not only white diamonds, but also emeralds and enamel. There is something really sleek, modern, and geometric about this collection, as the name would suggest, but it is a true show-stopping range. These pieces look old, they look archival, they look vintage in the best sense of these words. And if you're a true collector, look no further. These are truly meant for the Cartier connoisseur, but I think these brooches will set you back. I think there are two that are available more regularly, and I think they start, this particular one I think starts at just around $170,000. But I do think that if you are into this aesthetic, there's really nothing like it out there. But again, I don't think it's going to be everyone's cup of tea. And the same goes for this next collection, which again is extremely close to being high jewelry. I think the most iconic piece from the Flora and Fauna range from Cartier is this crocodile necklace, which features this alarmingly lifelike crocodile with each and every single scale being beautifully crafted and set with diamonds. But the overall piece, I think, is set with a single cushion cut yellow diamond, emeralds that are used for the eyes of the crocodile, and 945 brilliant cut diamonds. And this totals, I think, over 21 carats of diamond weight, which is jaw-dropping. And speaking of jaw-dropping, this piece also features a fully functional jaw detail. You can open the jaw of the crocodile, which I mean is kind of expected for the price of this piece, which is in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not the millions. There's actually no price available for this at the moment because it constantly fluctuates, and it is a piece that's only available for order. But their brooches, earrings, and necklaces again are in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. But if you are a true Cartier connoisseur, a true collector, this is definitely a holy grail collection. Well, it is a holy grail as far as quality and craftsmanship is concerned. But you know what? I'm going to change my mind and put it under acquired taste, because I don't think it is a collection that every single person would have a place for in their collections, regardless of the price tag. I think it is definitely for those who are looking to make a really bold and powerful statement. If anything, they are quite similar to me, maybe because of the reptile inspiration, but it does remind me of the Serpentine collection from Cartier. But worry you not, we have plenty of other animal-inspired collections coming up. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, one of Cartier's boldest, most industrial-looking collections, which is a part of most Cartier collectors' stack. Even though it's not quite as common as a Juste, Clou or a Cartier love bracelet, if you have that iconic Cartier stack going on, you have either looked at this collection or maybe you've also bought into it, which is the Clou de Cartier collection. It is inspired by the success of the Juste collection in that they took an industrial piece, in this case nuts and bolts, and tried to turn them into a true icon of luxury. In my opinion, it wasn't quite as successful as the Juste creation, but I might be in the minority because it is an extremely popular collection, especially among men. I think men tend to love this collection from Cartier more so than the Love and the Juste range. There are rings and bracelets in this collection. I picked the bracelet here, which is available in quite a few different shades. It's also available in white gold, but without a rhodium plating, which gives it this kind of blackish, it's not really dark black, it's more of like a dark sort of lunar gray shade, which is quite unique. It's one of the only pieces that you'll find from Cartier that's not in white, yellow, or rose gold, but has a more unique finish to it. But most often you'll find this piece in rose or yellow gold, and it will set you back. I think the bracelet is just around $7,000, but there are also rings and even earrings at this point. Not my personal favorite collection, so for me it is going to be a missed the mark. A collection that I love, however, is the Clash de Cartier collection, which is inspired by the idea of clashing styles and clashing elements. So you have these rebellious studs that are beautifully blended with age-old refinement and craftsmanship. This is a collection that has been around for quite a few years at this point. I remember the first time I saw this collection, it was when the Cartier boutique at Hudson Yard first opened, and they had these pieces on, they had them in almost like a snow globe. Well, it wasn't snowing, so it was just a globe, but it was actually shaking, and the reason they kept shaking, it was kind of like a robot underneath it that kept shaking it. And the reason for that is that they wanted to showcase the incredible movement and the incredible craftsmanship that goes into these pieces, because even though it looks like a solid, extremely hard and just substantial collection of pieces, each and every single element moves independently, giving these pieces a little bit more flexibility, and it just makes the whole collection look a little bit more fluid and definitely a lot more expensive. There is something really soft and delicate about these pieces when you have them on, even though they feature all these studs and nails that you would associate with more of a punk rock aesthetic, which I actually really appreciate. One of the latest additions to this collection was a more flexible take on the bangle, because this collection initially started with solid bangles and rings, but at this point they also have a lot more for you to choose from. They have these new flexible bracelets, which are not only available in solid gold but also in solid gold with diamonds. One thing that I would not recommend is that you go for this collection with diamonds, because the diamonds are set on top of these individual studs, which just kind of defeats the purpose. If you cannot see the pyramids, then what are you really paying for? Yes, I guess you still get the studs on the side, but I do not like this collection set with diamonds. But the solid bangles and the rings I do think are quite special. So for me, just because of all the mechanics and all the craftsmanship that goes into this collection, I'm going back and forth between Holy Grail and Acquired Taste. Let me put it in Holy Grail for now, just because that line has been sitting empty, but I might change my mind about this as we go on. Jumping from contemporary to archival, the next collection is the Cartier Dunmore collection, which is inspired by a range that was designed in 1938, if I remember correctly. And what makes this extremely simple collection quite special is the setting of the diamonds. There are actually some rings in this collection that feature no diamonds, but what you'll notice, the common thread in this collection is this fluted detail. So whether you are buying something with diamonds or without, you'll notice this really simple sort of belt that runs along the edge of each stone and the edge of each ring that you could buy without any stones. Maybe at the time it was revolutionary. Right now I don't think there's anything crazy special about these pieces. So for me, it would be not a missed, yeah, kind of a missed the mark. It's kind of boring and just meh, which is kind of what I have to say about this next upcoming collection, which is the Vendôme collection, not to be confused with Boucheron's Vendôme collection, which is completely different. This is Cartier's Vendôme collection, which is quite similar to the Trinity collection, which we'll move on to in just a bit. It is a range of rings. I'm pretty sure they only have rings in this collection, and each ring features 3 bands that are completely molded together, each one in a different shade of gold. So it has one band of white gold, one band of yellow gold, and one band of rose gold. And some of these rings will also feature diamonds. For me, it is a nice and modern collection that you could pick up as a wedding band, but it's nothing that I would write home about. But this next collection is, which is the Panthère de Cartier collection, jewelry collection, not watches. Today we are strictly talking about Cartier jewelry. This is one of the most iconic ranges that Cartier has to offer. If you're familiar with the brand, you'll know that the panther has been the brand's mascot since 1914, and it is a brand that I have been going on and on about. I have tried several pieces from this collection. Sadly, because I would love to have something in my collection from this range, but now sadly for my credit card and my bank account, it's not something that suits my personal aesthetic. These pieces are quite bold, in your face, they are strong, they are powerful, they make a statement, and they walk into a room way before you do. The most iconic piece from this collection, at least in my opinion, is the panther head that sits on your finger. You can either pick it up as a solid panther head or as a skeleton, so just the outline of the panther. This collection ranges, or these pieces I should say, these panther head rings range between $30,000 and the sky is the limit, because they're available fully encrusted with diamonds and precious stones. They come with colorful gems that are even more rare than the diamond encrusted ones. But since I have been going on and on about this collection, I wanted to put something new on your radar. The newest addition to this collection is the reinterpretation of the cuddling panthers. They've had these bracelets in this lineup where you had 2 panther heads facing each other, but they now have a new reinterpreted more refined bracelet, which is flexible, similar to the mini Juste Clou bracelet, so you can really easily just snap it onto your wrist. I believe there are also rings in this new mini range, and it features 2 panthers that are very close to each other, basically cuddling. If you're familiar with the Jungle Love collection from Hermes, that's what this particular collection reminds me of. I do think that there's nothing quite like the Panthère de Cartier collection out there. So for me, when it comes to Cartier, this is the definition of Holy Grail. Another iconic collection that celebrated its 100-year anniversary last year is the Trinity collection, which the original designs were revolutionary. Cartier was the very first brand to ever do these interlaced bands in 3 different shades of gold, and at this point pretty much every single jewelry brand has their own copy, dupe, or version of this. It will always feature, well, not always, it's actually not true, but it will usually feature 2 or 3 different textures, but the original Trinity collection featured a shade of yellow gold, rose gold, and white gold, symbolizing love, friendship, and fidelity. And what I find quite interesting about this collection, well, it's kind of a personal connection that I have to this, is that it reminds me of one of the first psychology papers I've ever written, which was on the triangular theory of love, which is a theory that hypothesizes these different elements and components that we have in every emotionally invested relationships, not only in romantic relationships, but it also talks about the relationships that we share with roommates and friends. It talks about 3 different elements that are present to some extent in every single emotional relationship, which are commitment, passion, and intimacy, emotional intimacy. So that's what this particular collection reminds me of. Anyway, it is an iconic collection. I do love the rings in this range. Last year, I did buy the white gold version with a single black ceramic band, which is not the first piece I ever bought from this collection. In the past, I also bought the cord bracelet, which is still available and is insanely popular, quite overdone at this point in my opinion. At least in Amsterdam, I see it way more than I should. But going back to the rings, I ended up returning that ring in white gold with the black ceramic because it did not have enough of an impact for me. If I was to buy this ring, I would most likely buy it in 3 different shades of gold set with diamonds, just to have a little bit of sparkle and a little bit more of a spice to it. But the most recent addition to this collection is the one that's finished in different animal prints. I told you that Cartier has this love affair with animals and different animal prints. They of course love their panthers, their tigers, and their giraffes, which are the 3 different enamel prints that you will find on these new rings. And then another recent addition to this collection is the cushion, the Trinity cushion range, where the Trinity rings are actually square instead of them being round, which I really dislike. I think they look incredibly awkward and just out of place. There's something, I cannot quite put my finger on what it is, but they just look really awkward and unfinished, and I really don't like these animal printed pieces either. But I'm not big on animal prints, but I wanted to point this out to you just so we don't always look at and talk about the same pieces. I want to bring you something new if you are already familiar with Cartier. But I would have to say that it is a holy grail collection because it has done so much for the history of jewelry. It was a truly revolutionary collection, and I still think that there is a time and a place for this range. And speaking of diamonds, here is a more delicate and feminine interpretation of the iconic motif of the Trinity collection that has the softness of the ribbon. This particular collection is best known for their wedding bands, which feature a very slight curve like a ribbon would, and that is so they basically accommodate for a larger engagement ring. So if you have a solitaire ring as an engagement ring, by having that curve in the wedding band, it allows you to stack it really closely to your wedding band without it looking awkward or it being uncomfortable. Here I have a pendant which features a single stone, and then it has this ribbon-like, really soft white gold background behind it that is also set with diamonds. For me, it's just one of those pieces that is out there, but there are so many brands that offer similar things to this that I would personally not lose my mind over this particular collection. This next collection, on the other hand, even though it's quite similar to the Trinity Ruban collection in that it's quite delicate, it's extremely soft and feminine, and I do think that if you have an appreciation for the Ruban collection, you would also enjoy this. I do think that the pieces in this collection are a lot more unique. It's a much larger collection, and it is done a lot more just exquisitely. Here we have a single ring, and actually I have 2 pictures from that very same collection, and what you have to know about this collection is that it's all about minimizing the use of heavy looking metals and really letting the diamonds used in this collection speak for themselves and shine on their own. Even though this collection is not about large oversized in-your-face diamond, it's all about very delicate and soft lines. Here we have a ring, which is a pave band with a single small diamond. In this case, there is a pear-shaped diamond featured on this, but they also offer this very same design with an emerald cut diamond. I've also seen it with a princess cut diamond, and they make for the perfect stacking pieces. They are just around $3,000 depending on the color of the band and the cut of the diamond that you opt for, but I think they make for an amazing stacking piece. They also have some beautiful, really simple diamond bangles in this collection, and this ring that we have right next to it is one where you have several different rings wrapped around your fingers, one with diamonds and one featuring pyramids, which is kind of a unique blend of this very soft and delicate feminine collection and the Clash de Cartier idea because of the pyramids. And for me, I have to say it is a holy grail collection because I do think that these pieces are ones that every single person could take advantage of regardless of their personal aesthetic. These are things that you can style and tweak depending on what else you stack them with. It's an extremely understated collection from Cartier, but I do think that they deserve some love and attention. Shifting gears and going from delicate and soft to bold and powerful. I will try to pronounce this collection, but please do not hate me if I butcher it. I believe it's called the Burlington collection, which is actually inspired by traditional French pyramid-shaped candies, which you can see that these pieces have a little pyramid at each end. It is a collection that blends some really beautiful textures. This particular ring has onyx with white diamonds, but there are also pieces in this range with semi-precious gems and even precious woods, believe it or not. And these are some really cool modern Art Deco looking pieces that are guaranteed to make a statement without screaming and shouting the brand name. This, in my opinion, is an extremely underrated collection in the Cartier lineup, but it's guaranteed to turn heads. So for me, I would say that it is a holy grail just because these pieces are so exquisitely done. This next collection has always reminded me of a horse bite, which, as you know, horse bites are a reoccurring motif in so many brands' DNA and heritage, from Gucci all the way to Hermes. It is also slightly reminiscent of the Shandong, even though it's completely different. But similar to those collections, this one is also hardware inspired. But what makes this collection unique is where Cartier got their inspiration for this particular hardware. It is a fastening from haute couture corsets that were used during the inception of the haute couture era in Paris. And this collection has this really old-timey sophistication and elegance. This to me just reminds me of ladies who lunch, and they do it so exquisitely and so effortlessly. These pieces are opulent, they are over the top, they are abundant. What's really unique about them is that they have this really interesting fastening hardware, and even though it is a hardware, it is a really soft and delicate one. And then each piece is combined with solid gold beads instead of there being a more traditional chain, which is quite special. But this collection again is for those who are looking to spend their hard-earned money at Cartier. I think this particular ring is just under $15,000 and it is the most affordable piece in this range. Yes, the ring is quite special, but I think this collection is best known for their bracelets, with this sort of fastening repeating itself over and over again on the fastening, just to give you the most bang for your buck. And I do think that on those pieces you can definitely see that corset-like fastening. So those are the pieces that I would go for from this collection. But because it's so special, and even though there are similar pieces out there, but pieces with similar inspirations, this to me is so quintessentially Cartier and just understated Parisian chic. I bet that most of you are not going to be familiar with this cushion collection from Cartier, which these pieces have always reminded me of pool floats. They are these large, oversized, blown up silhouettes and shapes. There are rings and bracelets in this collection, but what makes them look a lot softer in real life is that each and every single diamond is individually set and has their very own movement, similar to the Clash de Cartier collection. Each and every single diamond is carefully set and is able to move on its own. So while you have these large, really in-your-face pieces, they do have a little bit more sophistication to them because they are not solid. They don't just look like you were thrown a ton of diamonds at, which does make them quite special. And it is also similar to the next collection that we'll be discussing. This is definitely not understated or under the radar. Personally, because I'm familiar with the mechanism behind it and because I've had a chance to see it up close and personal, I can see the appeal, but it's definitely not one of those collections that I would, well, just because I was so generous before. I guess it has to be under acquired taste too, because it's definitely just as special as some of the previous pieces that we discussed. But I do think that it would not suit quite as many people as something like the Juste Clou range, for example, because the Juste Clou range is a lot more diverse inherently because there's more for you to choose from, whereas the Cushion collection is much smaller, and so is the Cactus collection, even though at one point Cartier was playing around with this range a lot more and they created some more commercial pieces. This again draws inspiration from nature, in this case cacti. There are some pieces that are more of an obvious interpretation of a cactus like this one, but then there are some that are inspired by cactus flowers that are a little bit more abstract, which are the ones that I tend to prefer. Here we have a pair of earrings, which what makes these specials, well, first of all, they do remind me of a cucumber, not really a cactus, but what makes this special is that you can actually wear these pieces separate, meaning, let me rephrase this, those little flowers that you see on top, which is of course a cactus flower, you can actually wear on its own without the hoop, or you can wear them combined with the hoop, so you get a 2-in-1. But at one point they also had some more wearable, more minimalist rings in this collection. Personally, it is definitely quite special, but again, it's just not my most favorite collection from Cartier that I have ever seen, and neither is the Love collection. Not because I think that there's anything inherently wrong with this. Again, I just dislike how much of a default it has become. Anytime someone thinks of designer fine jewelry, they immediately think of the Love collection, and because of how many dupes, fakes, and copies there are out there, I think the overall look of this collection has been cheapened. But if I had to pick a single piece from this collection, what would I pick? I don't know if I would really pick anything at this point. I chose the pavé version of the original Cartier Love bracelet because at this point it's available in 2 different widths. This is the classic one with black ceramics, which at this point just screams, I'm rich, look at me. So yeah, I wouldn't really pick up this piece. I wouldn't really go for the thinner one either. If I really had to pick something, I would most likely grab one of the Love bracelets in the brushed finish, because the original Love bracelets have a high shine polished finish to them. They recently came out with a brushed finish, which actually surprisingly makes these pieces look and feel a lot more understated. The only exception to the rule, I think, when it comes to the Love collection, I mean, if you love it, you go and enjoy it, but I do understand that if there is a symbolic meaning to it, if it was given to you by someone who is near and dear to your heart, if there is that sentimental element, I completely understand your attachment to these pieces. That does make them special, but I feel like that would make anything and everything special. It wouldn't have to be a piece of Cartier. As long as it's given to you with love, it's something that you appreciate and admire. But the idea behind these is that they were the very first pieces that were made for everyday wear in 1969, and they were inspired by medieval chastity belts. And a rumor has it that back in the day, it wasn't something that you could buy for yourself. It had to be purchased on your behalf by someone who loves you, and then they had to screw it on your wrist, which I think is a very special story. Not the fact that you couldn't buy whatever you wanted. I mean, if you love yourself, buy yourself a Cartier Love bracelet. You do not have to wait for a woman or a man to do that for you. So I guess that aspect I don't agree with, but I am a hopeless romantic at the end of the day. So for me, again, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with this, but just because of what this piece has become to represent, in my head at least, what my interpretation of it is, it's not something that I would spend my hard-earned money on. But trust me, I did spend way too much money on this collection, more than I care to admit. And we are ending with some very eye-catching pieces. Here we have the Reflection the Cartier collection, which the reason this is called the Reflection the Cartier collection is because it features so many diamonds that it essentially becomes a sheet of glass or a mirror that you can see your reflection in. This collection, similar to some of the previous ones, is again extremely close to being a range of high jewelry. even though there are some more accessibly priced pieces. I think some earrings start at $15,000. The fact that that is called accessible, or that we can consider that accessible, speaks volumes about the price range of this collection, which is in, I think, this range. Really, the sky's the limit. Some necklaces in this collection are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they really heavily rely on emerald cut diamonds. Most pieces will feature diamonds of different shapes, but emerald cut diamonds are the ones that are most commonly found in this particular collection, and they're basically put together like a game of Tetris. They are stacked on top of each other in some really unique ways. Personally, it is a miss the mark in my opinion. And then last but not least, we have the Amulet de Cartier collection, which sadly is discontinued at this point. I don't really understand why that is, but it was discontinued a few years ago. You can still find one-off pieces at Cartier, and of course you can still find them on the pre-loved market. Now, if you know me, you know that I am quite superstitious. Well, I don't even know if I would go as far as being superstitious, but if you tell me that something is supposed to bring me luck and protection, I'm going to be all over it. And the same goes for this collection. It was a collection that featured a myriad of different colored gems, and each one was supposed to bring you protection and luck, which is why they were called the amulets. But what I loved about this collection is that even though they had these deeper meanings, the collection itself was really simple, minimal, and stripped down, whereas pieces that are supposed to be lucky charms and lucky talismans tend to be a lot more literal and a lot more sort of, mystical or astrology inspired, whereas this collection was really modern, sleek, and minimal, which I really appreciated. But it's no longer around. But I love the meaning behind it. I love the fact that there was a little bit more juice and meat to this collection in terms of meaning and story and narrative. So because of that, to me, I have to say it used to be a holy grail, even though sadly it's no longer around. And I wonder how many of you are still around, because today's video was really long, even for me. If you have stayed with me, just know that I have so much appreciation for you. I cannot tell you how much you watching means to me. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on some of these collections. Let me know your experience with Cartier. Have you bought into Cartier before? Are you considering picking up something from Cartier? If so, what are your favorite collections? What are your least favorite collections? Are there any pieces in this collection that were brand new to you that you are now considering? I would just love to have a chat with you in the comment section about the world of Cartier fine jewelry. I cannot wait to hear from you. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. If I can find these pieces at a great price, I will make sure to have them listed and linked in the info box. And I hope to see you back here with a new video really, really soon.